Um, Arianna and I go way back. I actually worked at the Sunday Times of London when you were a wonderful writer there, and you were doing Marie Callas and other things. But Arianna has great big ideas. She almost should be the patron saint of the Aspen Ideas Festival. And about a month ago, we were talking about a really big idea that you were just starting to form. And then you said, why don't we announce it at Aspen Ideas Festival? And so I'll just turn it over to you to discuss this great idea, and then maybe we can enlist some support here.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. First of all, Walter, I must say that when I first mentioned the idea to you, what I loved is the way you resonated to it. As a man who's written about big ideas and big ideas people for so long, you kind of immediately responded. So the big idea is based on the fact that as we look around, we all, from our different perspectives, wherever we are politically, have come to the conclusion that something is very broken in America, that what we love about this country and the American dream is in real danger, and that this is our time for us to do something about it and not just wait for politicians to bring the sense of urgency that is needed to actually do something about it. And the biggest problem right now, wherever you look, is joblessness. I have two daughters, one just graduated from college, the other will be a junior. So many of their friends are graduating and can't get jobs. 75% of high school graduates who are not going to college can't get jobs. 50% of college graduates. So yet there is no real urgency coming out of the political world. So we looked at what can we do and when can we do it. And there is something about a convention, the two conventions coming up the end of August, beginning of September in Charlotte and Tampa, that is really a moment. That is a moment when we can come together and kickstart job creation and bring together businesses, not-for-profits, social entrepreneurs, individuals, and say, this is our responsibility. Obviously, there's going to be a big campaign around how do we reduce unemployment with multiple conflicting ideas. But the true bipartisanship can come around what can the private sector do. And the partners in this already are Ray Chambers from the Amelia Foundation, Jeff Weiner from LinkedIn, and LinkedIn, as you know, has identified 3.7 million job openings that are not being filled because of a skills gap. And the Aspen Institute, you have your whole initiative around skills and how do we fill the skills gap and how do we bring together community colleges and other colleges to help prepare people for the jobs that are available. But we thought beyond the practicalities is how do we capture people's imagination? You've written about how Einstein considered imagination more important than knowledge, about the whole need to really capture people's hearts, not just their minds. So we've actually decided that we are not going to call this initiative at both conventions where we're going to have big events and big exhibitions around what is working, something prosaic, that we are going to take a line out of a Bruce Springsteen song, and we are going to call it, We Take Care of Our Own. And I brought the lyrics. I was just showing Walter the lyrics because they're really powerful. He just wrote this song this year, and it's part of his tour. And I'll just read you, I won't read the whole thing, but I will just read you a couple of stanzas just to get the idea. It says, I've been stumbling on good hearts turned to stone. The road of good intentions has gone dry as a bone. Yet, wherever this flag is flown, we take care of our own. There ain't, and then he goes from Chicago to New Orleans, that you know well. There ain't no help, the cavalry stayed home. Now, there is help, but it's not reached critical mass. There are a lot of amazing things happening. And indeed, as a preamble to the conventions, we've launched a section of the Huffington Post that we call Opportunity, and the tagline is, what is working? And we are putting the spotlight on all the amazing things that are working in order to help scale them. And one final stanza, where's the hearts that turn over with mercy, where's the love that has not forsaken me, where is the work that set my hands, my soul free. There is something about work that is very elemental. You know, Ben Franklin, that you also wrote about, had the Leather Apron Society. You know, there is something in the American character that really holds work and the working people with the right kind of esteem and admiration and even awe about what they've achieved. And we need to recreate that. So that was a little longer than I intended.
But what specifically are you going to...
So specifically, we are really asking anybody, whether you have a business, small or large, whether you are not-for-profit, whether you are an individual, to commit to doing something to create jobs. For example, our partners, the foundations that are our partners, the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Skoll Foundation, have made different commitments. The Ford Foundation has made a commitment to identify not-for-profits that have openings and give them grants to fill them. The Skoll Foundation has made a commitment to do a competition around social entrepreneurships with the best ideas for job creation. Our corporate partners, Starbucks, Microsoft, Howard Schultz, we just had a big story on the Huffington Post today, has an open letter to America for July 4th around job creation. Again, they're doing their part at Starbucks with the bracelets that they are selling. They've raised $12 million that they are investing in job creation. NBC, that is our media partner, is committing to putting the spotlight again, like we're doing, on what is working. And then we also are going to have a big exhibition that will spotlight what is working. You know, all the individuals, the small businesses that are actually creating jobs, and the mayors. You know, the mayors around the country are doing amazing things. We have blog posts on the site today from the mayors of Phoenix, Boston, Oklahoma, about what they're doing.
Now, an economist would say that this is just psychological, but in some ways, if we got the psychology right, you probably could kickstart job creation. Is that what they tell you?
Yeah, well, I think it's both. I mean, it's actually going to be practical in that we are going to actually create jobs. But to create jobs on the scale that we need to create jobs, psychology is the key. You're absolutely right. It's like if you look at the emphasis at the moment, it's all been on our deficits. And that same night when I told you about this idea, Warren Buffett was there, and you and I told him that idea together. And what Warren Buffett said is, he said, it's very important that we start focusing on our surpluses. There are a lot of surpluses in this country, you know, a surplus of talent, a surplus of time even. You know, there are so many skilled, unemployed people with time in their hands. How can we use these surpluses to come up with ideas and the reality of job creation?
Is this going to be focused mainly or partly at younger people coming out of high school and college?
This is going to be our top priority because we believe that we have a special responsibility to young people. It's like there is something very off when you graduate from high school if you're not going to college, or from college and you can't get a job. Especially if you consider this is coupled with the fact that students right now are burdened with $1 trillion in student debt. So it's not just that they can't find a job, many of them, it's also that they are burdened with debt. So that's our top priority, but obviously all ideas are welcome. You know, if people have ideas for all the people, those are going to be welcome, but our own prioritizing will be on young people.
Are you going to go to corporations, say, and say, why don't you just pledge 150 more jobs for young people?
Yes.
And what would they say to their shareholders?
Well, obviously, you know, a corporation that has a responsibility to its shareholders has to hire people in relation to the needs of the corporation. But a lot of corporations are not investing anything in training to meet that skills gap. And also, there is a tremendous amount of work being done right now, and we're covering that as well, on what are the responsibilities of corporations. Is it just profit, or are there also responsibilities to society? You know, is it just the bottom line, or can it be profit with purpose, is one phrase that's being used. Can it be the creation of impact bonds, social bonds? I mean, there's an enormous amount of innovation around business at the moment. Again, Walter, you wrote somewhere about how we used to be much more innovative around job creation, but we've become so innovative now around financial instruments. You know, we really went from a country that makes things to a country that makes things up. You know, CDOs, credit default swaps, you know, all these things have ended actually costing us jobs, you know, millions of jobs. And so we need to reconfigure what our priorities are. And again, you're involved with Teach for America. There is something happening with young people, which is pretty remarkable. How many thousands of people do you have on your waiting list now?
We have 40,000 people who applied who could not be, who were applied and met the standards, but couldn't be put into jobs.
40,000.
Out of the, I think, 7,000 or 8,000 that we are able to take into the core. And Barbara Bush is here, and some of you have been talking to her. She's done the same thing by creating a program like Teach for America, but for global health. So if people want to, you know, come out of college, come out of grad school, whatever it is, and dedicate 2 years of your life to helping with global health, it puts people there. It would seem to me, I mean, one of the things I've always, and this is something that Barbara was talking about, why we don't replicate the Teach for America model, which is there's a whole lot of talent there. We could have Doctors for America, you know, engineers, what have you, people who want to serve communities, want to have that first job, first skill set, and then, you know, they'll be on a path, you know, a real career.
Well, in fact, there are two other cores like that. Venture for America, that we've partnered with for this, and they actually literally identify people straight out of college with a startup idea, and they send them to Detroit or to New Orleans, to cities that need help, and they create their startup there. The other, again, imitator of Teach for America is Code for America.
Right.
That takes engineers straight out of college and puts them in cities where they can improve the way a city runs. You know, some of these cities are antediluvian. It's like Tom Brokaw said, you know, that we're living in our political system remains analog in a digital society. So we have this, the need to update a lot of the ways in which cities work. So you know, there are all these, every day I'm constantly amazed by how much is happening that is phenomenal and how little attention we in the media pay to these things.
You mentioned Brokaw. I haven't talked to him about this, obviously, but his book that came out last year, this was a core part of it. I assume you've seen it,
Yes.
which is creating these cores that people who come out of college can actually get work right away.
And again, people like Brokaw who can put their credibility and their ability to get attention on something like that are going to be critical.
Yeah. In your creation of the Huffington Post, which is now how old?
7 years old.
Well, like you took over AOL after AOL took over my company, so congratulations for flipping the script on them. What you've learned through social media, how does that apply to things like you're doing?
Well, I think it applies in an amazing way because the hope that this can actually scale is because we are now operating as a platform. You know, if you take the Huffington Post, we're a journalistic enterprise that has 500 journalists, reporters, editors, doing kind of long-form investigative pieces and all that we associate with journalism, even winning a Pulitzer. But we also we are a platform, and that is for me perhaps even more important, because as a platform it means that we can create a section like the one I just described on opportunities and invite everyone to come and join the distribution channels that we have and write about our ideas and connect with others' ideas, and then magic happens. I mean, every day, honestly, the most exciting thing I get now is from our editors. We have about 12 editors working on this project, sending me updates about, we just got this, the CEO of so-and-so, sending in what they're going to do. We just got this not-for-profit. We just got, and they're just basically using the platform to write about their ideas, connecting with others. You get commenters. You know, we've had since we launched the Huffington Post, 166 million comments, and they're all pre-moderated.
Yeah.
So there's a tremendous engagement with these ideas. And then we see what happens. That's really, I think, what the power of social media, to bear witness and to bring about real change.
Eric Schmidt, who'll be speaking at 5, the tent next to here, was talking earlier today about worrying how digital media balkanizes us, divides us, has made the body politic that we've talked about more divisive. Do you think that's true? And do you think you can use the Huffington Post to try to ameliorate that situation?
Well, there is no question that social media can balkanize us in the same way that I think the other snake in the digital Garden of Eden is that we can fetishize something going social. We can just say people, you see that with brands, becoming obsessed with something. This video went viral, this tweet is trending. And without asking the question, what is it that went viral and what is trending? It's like the Thoreau line about we are in great haste to construct a magnetic telegraph between Maine and Texas, but perhaps Maine and Texas have nothing important to say to each other. When you think that last year 3% of all tweets were about Justin Bieber, we have to remember that there is a lot of fetishizing going on. But on the other hand, as B. Stone, the co-founder of Twitter, said, Twitter can be a triumph of humanity, not just a triumph of technology. So again, these are tools. Mm-hmm. It depends on what we do with them.
But you've been quite worried about the lack of civil discourse in our politics and about the lack of a common ground in our politics.
Well, that's why, on HuffPost, our reporters are not allowed to use the terms left and right. I feel this is lazy journalism. I feel that the most important issues of our time unite us all. On these panels at the conventions, we are asking John Kasich and Rick Santorum to participate because they both care about this issue. Mary Matalin is going to be involved. It's not about where you are politically. And all these people can disagree about the role of government in job creation. But the true bipartisanship is going to be about what we as individuals and as businesses can do. Mm-hmm. And for me, doing that in a way that's civil is absolutely key. That's why from day one, when we couldn't afford it, all our comments were pre-moderated. Mm-hmm. So to avoid the worst aspects of the internet, trolls, ad hominem attacks, we now have the most advanced comment pre-moderation technology that we're going to white label. And on top of it, we have 30 human comment moderators. So when something like healthcare, the healthcare decision happened yesterday, we had 70,000 comments on one article. Wow. So how do you make sure that there are no trolls among them? Otherwise, the conversation stops. You need an enormous amount of good technology as well as human beings who are supplementing the technology.
You're always one step ahead of the thought police. What's the next phase of digital media, do you think? Blogging has a certain quality to it, and blogging with comments, but you've expanded the Huffington Post so that it's now reporting. Is there something else coming next?
Yes, I think what is coming next, and that's where, if you want to make money on the internet now, this is the way to go. You
mind if I take notes?
I think what's coming next is using technology to disconnect from technology and connect with ourselves. Because I think people are beginning to realize that we are fried, that we are so distracted, and that being distracted means we are really disconnected from our own wisdom, our capacity to come up with big ideas and to execute on big ideas. Walter, I keep quoting you because you've written about all these things, but when you wrote about Jobs and you described his genius, which is different than his intelligence, and when Jobs writes about the need to silence his attention deficit disorder mind, that he meditated, he did. If you look at every sort of really, not just successful, but any of the people who actually took us to another level in whatever way, whether it's a product for passion a passion for product or a passion for ideas. They have been able to produce these discontinuities. And they don't just come by working from your inbox and responding to your emails. I mean, Jeff Bezos at that conference we're at in Seattle wrote about how he disappears for a period of time and just thinks. Bill Gates would go to a cabin for a week, a year, where he wouldn't be reachable. So if you look at how many absolutely brilliant, high IQ leaders we have at the moment making terrible decisions, it's not that they are not smart. It's not that they're not well educated. It's that they are not wise. And why? Because they're disconnected from that place of wisdom. So we are going to be launching at the end of August an app.
An app to, there's an app for that.
Yes,
to
there's
stop
definitely
apping.
an app for that, that we are calling a GPS for the soul. And the idea is that we've partnered with medical technologists so that you download it on your phone, you tap it, and you get a stress reading, your heart rate variability. And then we're going to move on in the next iterations with blood pressure, breath rate, etc. But we're starting with heart rate variability. And then you can personalize it with the things that help you course correct, become more centered, more at peace, silence your mind, all the chatter of the mind. And I mean, I showed it in Cannes, at the advertising conference, we demonstrated it, and I showed them my guide, because I've already personalized mine in the beta form. And, just showing it, people were talking about how it brought them into a more centered place. Just seeing my guide, which includes pictures of my children when they were young and unproblematic. Particular pieces of music, breathing exercise, whatever it is. And then, you may personalize with the things that do that for you. And then I may say, hey, I like what Walter has, and then I can share with you or take something from your guide. So it's also become social. And for me, the first thing is that it makes us aware of where we are. Because very often we become so disconnected even from how stressed we are until we get sick, or we crash, or we can't get through a day without some form of medication. France, where we were for this advertising conference, has the greatest consumption of antidepressants. And I said to them, hey guys, you invented croissants, champagne, and afternoon sex. If you are depressed, what hope is there for the rest of us?
On that note, let me open it up a bit for, I'm a bit speechless after that. Questions, thoughts? Yes.
Ideas?
And just shout them out, or there's a microphone actually about to hit you, so you don't have to shout
And
it
tell us
out.
your name, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Jan Robinson. You were talking earlier about job creation and how to stimulate jobs at a basic level. I look around this room, and I also look at the facts that around this room, we are basically a Caucasian room. And I look around at the joblessness and Black Americans, and particularly Black males. And I see all these great superstars, athletes, business people as well, who don't reach out to help their people. And there must be somebody, not in my sphere, but in your sphere of people that you know, that can reach out and sort of get these people behind that kind of a movement, because it does not
Well, how
really
are
exist.
you trying that on the diversity
Oh,
plan?
absolutely, yes. We have a section on called Black Voices, and we are reaching out to a lot of very successful Black entrepreneurs. A lot of them are doing things, but not enough. That's the point. There are good things being done, but the question is, how do we accelerate what is happening? In a sense, what we are pointing out when you look at minority joblessness, which is much higher than white joblessness, is a race against time. You have a lot of good things happening, but also an enormous amount of dysfunction. So my hope, and the reason why I am ultimately optimistic, is because I really believe in the concept of critical mass. I really believe that each time somebody does something to create a job, or two jobs, we're getting closer to critical mass. And once we get to critical mass, then something else takes over, something magical happens. And it's really, I just came from this great religious, Linda and I were at this great religious session. And so if I may say something that I took from there. You know, for me, grace is the spiritual equivalent of critical mass. So basically, grace says you do your part, but you're not expected to do it all. You know, we'll meet you halfway, or more than halfway. I mean, maybe we'll meet you 90% of the way. So that's really where my hope is. And that's why when somebody does something small that creates one job or two jobs, you don't know, maybe that's the thing that can get us to the tipping point.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right, over here, where people saying over here, yes.
Hi, I love your ideas, and
Introduce yourself if you would.
Paul Gannon, I'm a naturopathic physician here in Aspen and in Florida. I love your ideas, and I'm wondering about the connection and building a platform, for instance, maybe like a national Craigslist just for the job searching and the job placement. You know, I tried to find an internet marketer, and I tried a few different routes, contacting a university that had a program in it, going on Craigslist, but things were coming up short. And I'm wondering, you know, there are people that live in Ohio and would be happy to do phone consulting for, you know, JCPenney or something, rather than it being outsourced to India. And I'm just wondering about the platform being built, maybe a website of some sort.
In fact, you know, one of the great things is that for so many of these great ideas, something is already happening. Like there is a site called bright.com that is like a dating site, except instead of helping you find your beloved, it helps you find a job. And so to go check out bright.com. And we have Bright, BRIGHT.com. And all that incidentally is being featured on our opportunity section. And so basically what we're trying to do is to collect all these things. So if you are interested, if you have an idea and you want to see is there somebody already working on it, can I partner with them and scale it, go there and bring your idea, connect with others. But that's so true what you're saying, because if you look at the fact that there are 3.7 million job openings, one of the problems is geographical distance. Another problem is the skills gap. So how we can bring these things together is going to be key.
Mm-hmm. Further questions? Yeah, did you? Yeah, nope. All right.
Over there.
Yeah, there's one there and one there. Yes, right here.
You can shout it.
Shout it out.
Oh, so the Ford Foundation has basically, you know, identified a lot of not-for-profits that could create jobs. They need people, but they don't have the money to pay them. Mm-hmm. So they're proposing, this is their commitment, to offer grants so that not-for-profits can hire the people they need. Then Startup America, which is another fund that has been created around and around these ideas, is partnering with different corporations, like Gap, for example, is doing trainings that help people do interviews, even basic skills that help people create jobs. So every corporation can come up with its own value added, depending on what their skill set is, what their employees can help with, and how they can either themselves create jobs or help not-for-profit create jobs.
The Clinton Global Initiative, he always asks for commitments, and then they publish them, and they make. Is that a model you're going to follow?
Yes, we decided to call them promises and commitments instead of pledges, so that because we are going to publish them, but also we need to make it clear that we're not going to police them. You know, it's not like we can't then go and say, you said you're going to create 150 jobs and you created 149. So there has to be a kind of honor system. But accountability will prevail because of social media. Again, that's where that comes on its own.
In fact, one of the things about the new media is it has made the old media so much more accountable. How do you see media developing? I mean, do you think there's going to be a withering away of traditional newspapers?
No, I actually see the future being more of a hybrid. I see, the best of old media developing great new media features, not just websites, but social media tools, and the best of new media.
Social media tools like what? What would you create?
Like the way they use Twitter, the Facebook, all the Pinterest, Instagram, they're becoming pretty agile at integrating these things. Because remember, at the beginning, it was like we introduced blogging, as if you're a major newspaper, and then you had to wait for 2 years to kind of do the next thing. And now, they're hiring the right people. A lot of it is just hiring people they might not want to have dinner with.
And you're also starting a digital magazine, right?
Oh, yes. Well, that's the other thing that's happening, is that now at HuffPost we have 1,500 stories a day. Some of them our reporters produce, some we aggregate, some our bloggers write about. So there's so much material that we felt it was important to once a week we created an iPad magazine that is, if I may say so, beautiful. It's gorgeously designed, great photography, and it both picks the best from the week at the Huffington Post, and it also has original features, sometimes 8,000, 10,000 word features on big stories, like a great story by Peter Goodman on what happened to the Obama youth, which was like a 2-month research job. And so it's really, our tagline was join the slow news movement, because HuffPost is, of course, about the hurly-burly, the latest news in real time, all there on every subject. We now have 70 sections, covering everything from politics to our divorce section, which is one of our most popular sections. And it was, sad to say, Nora Ephron's brainchild. Do you know what the tagline she gave?
I was about to say, I do know the tagline, but why don't you tell people the tagline that Nora Ephron came up with?
The tagline that she came up with was, marriage comes and goes, but divorce is forever.
Is there a question back there, or is there one more? Yes. You'd be the last two at this table, so we can keep the mic at the table.
My name is Mary Potter. Fundamentally, we're very proud of our technology and our society, but our technology often is geared toward the elimination of jobs and the creation of efficiencies, which we've seen great profitability from at least 10, 15 years ago. So we have this fundamental disconnect between eliminating jobs and creating jobs. And I think you've got a little bit of a battle ahead of you to convince people about job creation.
Do you actually think, put it as a question. Do you actually think technology eliminates jobs rather than creates them?
No, I don't actually think. I think what's happening is that there's a lot of redistribution. The needs are redistributed. If you look, for example, at healthcare, the growth and the need for healthcare means there are going to be millions of additional jobs being needed in healthcare. If you look at renewable industries, if we're going to really wean ourselves off fossil fuels, there are going to be, as Bill Clinton has been talking about that for a long time, millions of new jobs in renewable industries. But we haven't really made the commitment to invest in a way that we did in public-private partnerships, which has always been the greatness of America. If you go back after Pearl Harbor, the Sputnik moment, there are all these great moments, and we don't have these moments now. And that's really what we are hoping, by people coming together with big ideas and smaller ideas, and actually moving from ideas to action, which is the key. We can kickstart, and Kickstart is another great example. What Kickstarter is doing with basically small donations, crowdsourcing, funding of good ideas is just another way in which technology can help. And technology companies are very aware of this rap, that they may be destroying jobs, and many jobs, you're right, have been destroyed. I mean, what Google did this week was, I think, very important to say, you know, let's actually make things here. You know, we can make our mobile devices here. We don't have to make them in China. I think that was another great moment this week.
Just speaking from a historical perspective, this is an interesting topic, but since you go all the way back in history from, say, the beginning of the looms and automated looming for the weaving industry, there was always the fear that the technology would destroy jobs, but I'm not a total expert, but if you look at the data points from the Industrial Revolution through, it's always the technology that we feared the most ends up creating the most jobs. So it'll be interesting to see. Last question, sir.
Yes. Maybe this is an idea, maybe it's invoked now, maybe it would work. In Miami, there's an organization called the New World Symphony, which was started maybe 15 years ago by Ted Arison and Michael Tilson Thomas. And the purpose was to find a place for graduates, highly qualified musicians who could not find a position. And they have 2 years, I think it is, where they perform and continue their training at a very minimal salary, and it gives them a chance not to be unemployed and to increase their abilities to get a position. And many of them subsequently find positions in orchestras, you know, around the world. And I'm wondering, is that something in place now in corporate or government, what could be?
Yeah, and create that in every field, not just for young
Yes.
musicians.
Yes,
Why don't you
actually,
use that as a
And could
ending?
you, in fact, that's a great ending, because would you write about it? In fact, I really would love to invite anyone in this room who either has an idea or has read about something that's working or knows someone who has an idea to do so. And I'm going to give you my email address. It's Arianna, with 1 R and 2 N's, at huffingtonpost.com, and send it to me. And we will make sure that it's posted on this new section that we launched, because I really believe that's the way this is going to work. It's like using that power of social media and then taking to the next step of commitments, promises, so that it's not just us changing the narrative, which is very important, changing the narrative. Good storytelling that touches people's hearts is key, but then moving it to the next step of real action and a real difference in people getting jobs, that's going to be the big reward, exactly what the country needs, and we can all be part of the solution.
Arianna, thank you for thinking big. Thank you. Appreciate it.